Okay, is that all okay? Cool. Hey, so I'm Julie DUGDALE. I'm from the Grenoble Informatics Lab, which is here in this building. And I'm going to talk about some work that we've been doing as part of a European project called C2Impress. And the work's basically about modelling and simulating population evacuation just immediately after an earthquake. So this is some work that I've been doing with Ruba, who's a postdoc who also works here, and with Hossein from RMIT, which is Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, but that's based in Barcelona. Sebastian, who's from RMIT in Melbourne, and also Dharindra, who's from CSIRO in Australia. So we're all part of this European project, but this little subgroup's been working on this. So what is C2Impress? Well, it's a European project that's designed to develop a set of models, methods, frameworks, tools and technologies for a disaster resilient society. So the bit that I'm involved in is this bit here in red, which is human behaviour model and agent-based model for decision support. So really what we're trying to do is develop a set of simulators to help with evacuation preparation in various different types of crises. So we don't work alone in this European project. We're linked to the other parts that I've highlighted in green. So for example, with early warning systems and floods, we try to simulate the effect of having an early warning system in the flood. In the system of systems, which you can see on the top left, we're integrating our simulator into this system of systems. And also on the top right, we work very, very closely with our stakeholders in what we call the public-private civic partnership. Okay, but I'll explain a little bit more as we go on. So about the project, we're slap bang in the middle of the project at the moment. There's 16 partners, which you can see over here on the right. So we're divided into 8 countries. We have a nice budget of 5 million. And there are about 4 case study areas. So we work particularly with Egalio in Greece. So Egalio is quite a small, a large town, small city, which is just about 20 minutes from Athens. So very, very prone to earthquakes. And we also work with the Balearic Islands in Spain, where we're dealing there with earthquakes and flash floods as well. So that's a bit about the project. What we're doing is we're trying to improve disaster preparedness in terms of evacuation planning. So evacuation in different types of crises. One thing that we're very proud of, and something that we've worked really hard to do, is to involve our stakeholder partners right from the very beginning. So in terms of designing our simulator, implementing the simulator, deciding what scenarios we're going to simulate, deciding what metrics we're going to use, and also in terms of the testing and the validation. So we work really, really closely with them. And we're developing 3 simulators. One is an earthquake in Egalio, Greece. Another one is flash floods in Mallorca. And the third one is also in Mallorca, but that's dealing more with forest fires. So I'm going to focus on Egalio for this presentation. So we use something called an agent-based approach with a belief, desire, intention, architecture. So don't worry too much if you understand none of that whatsoever. So an agent is basically a little piece of code. So if you're used to any object-oriented programming, you can say that an agent is a little bit like an object. But what we do is for each of these agents, each of these computational agents, represents a person in the real world. And each of these agents can have their own characteristics. So we can give them different ages. They could be male, female, whatever. They can be in different family structures. They can also have different behaviours that we can give these agents. So we put them all together in this simulator and we simulate this earthquake and we see what they're going to do. So basically what we've got are these cognitive agents who will choose what they're going to do based on the context that they're in and also based on what they believe and what they want to do. Okay. So I'm going to talk more about this, the human behaviour part of it and how that feeds into the agent-based model in our computational simulator. So the problem that we have is that many evacuation procedures assume that people will behave rationally and that we'll all do the perfect thing. So we know where to go and we'll do that without any regard for anybody else. And we'll just get up, we'll leave, and we'll go there straight away. And really, that's not very realistic of how people behave. So these simulators tend to lack this realistic focus on what people will actually do. So that's what we're trying to incorporate into our simulators. So the issues is that what we do in disaster situations is really strongly influenced by our social ties. So for example, we're not just going to get up, evacuate and leave our family there. We're going to evacuate with them, and that may take time to get everybody together to evacuate. We have an attachment to objects, people or places. And here you can see this woman here. And this was part of a video. And the earthquake's going on, the place is shaking, she's in her office. She goes out and she remembers that she's forgotten her phone. So she goes back into her office to collect the phone. Okay, so it's an attachment to a piece of technology. And we all have attachments. I'm very attached to my computer, but also to people as well, our family and our friends, our places. So our homes will often be a place that we'll try to reach if anything happens. So our behaviours are also influenced by our own knowledge, which can be from training, our previous experience of being in a disaster situation, our cognitive biases. So there are about 100 cognitive biases, and they all have a little delicate role to play in how we make decisions. Our perception of the risk. So, for example, that may be the perception of the building that we're in a certain situation. If we're in a building that we believe will withstand an earthquake, that will affect our behaviours, as opposed to one that we think may fall down immediately with a little bit of shaking. The context that we're in will also affect our behaviours. So, for example, I've got a picture here of some tourists walking in a city where there's been an earthquake. So our behaviour as a tourist is going to be very different to our behaviour if we're in a place that we know and we know what to go, we know what to do for a particular hazard. Okay, if we're a tourist, it may be that when you're on holiday, you don't think about what kind of disaster is going to happen in your holiday destination. You just say, I'm just going on holiday, I just want to go to the beach. You don't prepare and think, I must read up on all the disasters that could happen here and what to do, where the evacuation points are. So they're a very vulnerable group in this particular situation. And also our behaviours are affected by our trust in others. So particularly if people want to guide us somewhere, that our trust in them will also affect our decisions. So we wanted to find out what people's behaviours were. So we conducted an online survey in Gallia, Greece, for the population that was there, which was conducted by Ruba, who's sitting at the back here. And the questionnaire was in three main sections. We asked questions on socio-demographic characteristics, people's earthquake experience and their response, what they did, and also their preparation and knowledge of recommendations. So some of the main findings, I won't go through all of these, but what we found out is that previously most respondents will evacuate from buildings. The most common behaviours when outside of buildings are joining family members and moving away from buildings. So people don't necessarily go to an official open space. What they will do is to try and find their family first. 78% of the respondents received information about what to do in the case of earthquakes. That mostly came from educational establishments, which were the most common source of information. However, most respondents said that they hadn't received any training within the last 5 years, and that more than 50% of the respondents do not feel prepared for an earthquake. And even the results of this survey were very useful for our stakeholders that we're working with in the local council, because then that gives them maybe some actions that they can do based on these results. So what we wanted to do then was to see, are there any common behaviours that may be related to demographic characteristics or social situations? So we performed a hierarchical cluster analysis to uncover what we called archetypes. So these common types of stereotypes, really. So I won't go through all of these, but we identified 7 archetypes. So for example, the first one we call the proactive evacuator. They may have received info on recommended behaviours, but they still feel unprepared. Typically, they may be female, 18 to 35-year-old, live in a multi-generational household. Okay. What do I need to do?
Okay, we will share again, but
okay.
We have to share the screen number 2. And then now it should be fine.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yeah, so the proactive evacuator, typically female, 18 to 30, lives in a multi-generational household, usually a caregiver for the elderly or disabled. This kind of archetype would evacuate promptly, but they may wait for others before evacuating. Once outdoors, they will go to an official open space. Whereas, and now I can't move yes, there we go. Whereas somebody who's a social proactive evacuator hasn't received any information, but they feel prepared. They know the location of where they should go. Typically, they're a male between 15 to 39. Their behaviours may be more delayed evacuation because they wait for other people. When they're outside, their first action is to join other family members, and then they go to an unofficial open space. Or somebody who's a prepared remainer. So these kinds of, this evacuation, archetype would maybe not evacuate at all. So they don't evacuate the building, but they tend to stay indoors. Okay. So that again, there are certain demographic characteristics associated with these this archetype. Okay. So we fed all of that human behaviour model into an agent-based model. In our simulator, we also include population data. So how many people are in this target area? What age groups? We also feed into the infrastructure data, so the road network, the policy data of what people are supposed to do, because we want to compare what people are supposed to do with what they actually do, natural hazard data, and then we start running some simulations. Oops. So we identified 3 scenarios that we wanted to experiment with. The first one was the compliance with evacuation instructions. So everybody is all the agents are supposed to behave properly and do exactly what's expected of them. So they're supposed to immediately proceed to the nearest evacuation centre. The second scenario was that they're supposed to go to an evacuation centre, but here they're pre-informed about which evacuation centre they should go to that has the available capacity. And then the third one is where we inject the real human behaviours and see what they do. So I've got a little video here. Hopefully it's going to work. We're just using here 7 agents. Normally we simulate, it's around 5,000 agents in the simulator, but you wouldn't be able to see everything that's going on here. So in the first one, all the agents, so you've just got your little agents there in yellow, and they're all moving towards officially designed open spaces. Okay, you can't really see it, but they move at different speeds depending on, for example, their age or whatever. In the second one, some agents, because they're told that they have to go to certain evacuation centres, they may travel further away to get to an evacuation centre, but then they know that there will be space at that evacuation centre. And then the last one is where we put in some real behaviours. Oops. Try and run that. And here we have different agents. We've got an agent that stays at home who doesn't want to evacuate. Another one would go to a neighbourhood. Another one would choose between an official or an unofficial open space. One goes to a relative's home, etc. So they're doing a variety of things. So when we're comparing these results, we look at the distribution of individuals across evacuation centres. So you can see in the top one here where everybody is acting according to policy, then with the evacuation centres that you have on the horizontal axis, you see that number 7 is really well over capacity. So if they do what they're told to do, then one of the evacuation centres is going to be really, really full, and some of the others are going to be completely empty. For the second one, because we tell them, okay, you if this happens, you should go here or you should go here, there's a lot more even distribution between the people in the evacuation centres. And then the third one, still an even distribution, but what happens is that when we bring in real human behaviours, there's a big difference in terms of the evacuation time, because it will take a lot longer for people to reach evacuation centres. We also track we have a visualisation of the network, the road network, and how congested that will be according to how people are moving around the city trying to get to evacuation centres. Okay, so you can see differences, and again that could be useful for stakeholders to be able to manage certain areas of the network. Okay, so I'm going to end there. What we've done is we've given these results to the stakeholders. We don't make any guidance recommendations. We just say, okay, this is what we're finding, and then the stakeholders use those results, they choose to use them, and at the moment they seem quite happy. So thanks very much. Do you have any questions?